ask yourself, how is AI going to affect that market?
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Exit Whisperer. I have to tell you, this is the greatest joy, the ability to talk to these women and hear their stories, and today's episode is no exception. Christine Merser is going to tell you about her career that spans decades of wins and losses and great exits and exits that did not pan out the way they were supposed to. You're going to hear it all in this talk, and she holds nothing back. And my favorite part about this episode is that she is so focused on how women of the next generation can listen to and really heed some of her important pieces of advice. And believe me, they're important. It's a big story. Take a listen.
She just sold her company. She sat in a room full of men negotiating the biggest deal of her lifetime. Wait, she sold for how much? I can't even believe she managed to get double her valuation. Let's keep this just between us.
Welcome, Christine, to the show.
How many years? I'm so happy to be here. I can't even tell you.
So many. And, you know, it's so fabulous to be here. And actually, one of the things we're going to talk about today is a company that you exited that I ended up years ago. This is how we connected. I did some work for in the social media space. And so I'm so happy that you're here today to tell your stories, because your stories really need to be told. Like when I got into them, wow.
Well, I'm just so glad that all the stories don't have to have a happy ending, and you're still going to talk about some of them.
You know what? It's really important to me. And the good news, the thing that I love about your story is it has lots of endings and lots of beginnings. And I think that to me is like the most interesting, like some good, some bad, and all of it. So let's get into it.
Great.
But before the internet was even like a big thing, you were in the internet. You were really applying.
By the way, wasn't the internet then? It was the World Wide Web.
True.
The World Wide Web was a series of servers in universities across America, and it was a web, and that's how the university intellects were communicating with each other. And then it moved out, and then there was CompuServe and AOL. I was the first forum manager on CompuServe. I managed the Women's Issues Forum on CompuServe, and that was 93. So because I had that sort of early access to it before anybody did, nobody had email. You know, when my friends started to get their computers and the apples were being delivered, and they would say, can you come over and set up my email? So I wrote a book because I didn't have time to help everyone. But we did the first Olympic website ever. Nagano was done by my company. So, but that's because there's nobody else. It's not that we were that good. It was like,
sometimes it's when you're first. I mean, we've talked about this. I had that same experience in social media. When you're first, you take on a lot. Now, I'm interested in one thing. So you started very early, and we're going to talk about one company that you were actually a part of during the .com kind of bust.
But I would love to know. Yep.
Yeah, best selection. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But before we go there, I want to ask you about any of the parallels that you see when you're looking at this time when the World Wide Web was coming to pass, and now we're looking at this time where AI is becoming such a huge thing. Do you see a lot of parallels in that? I know that's not typically our topic, but I just have to ask because you just are real.
I do see parallels, and we only have a few minutes, so I'm not going to waste your time with too many, but I do think anybody who's starting a company now or growing a company now, the mistakes I saw small businesses making during the emergence of the internet and the World Wide Web, it's this moment in time where I see a perfect parallel. I'm going to give you an example. I was at a dinner party. Amazon launched in July, I think, in 95. Okay, 3 months later, I'm at a dinner party, all investment banking people, by the way. And Riggio was there, and he owned Barnes & Noble. So somebody at the table asked Riggio, are you worried about Amazon? Which had now launched. It's in there 3 months. And, you know, they were losing, I don't know, billions. I'm making these numbers up. But
right.
He said, no, not worried at all. They'll be out. We're putting a website up. It'll be up in a year. And bricks and mortar, there's no way they can compete. They'll be out of business in 6 months. And then someone turned to me and said, we don't really spend any time on the internet. What do you think? And I said, well, I'm willing to bet you a boatload of money Mr. Riggio, that you'll be out of business because I don't think you understand the enormity of what they're going to be able to do. And I knew that it was the first e-commerce site, and he picked books. The reason he picked books is because there are so many of them. So what he recognized is bricks and mortar couldn't manage the enormity of the number of books. I mean, it was the genius of Bezos. It's not that he was the big reader, although I'm sure he reads, but it was because he knew that was the thing that had the largest inventory, which meant he could load it in. So we made a bet that night, which he never paid, and which, by the way, I've thought about over the years. But, but here's what I saw. First of all, none of these men could type. If you can't type, you couldn't be on the internet. They couldn't do email. They couldn't do any of that. So what you need to look at with AI is that AI at this moment in time is the same thing. So whatever you're looking at, whatever your market share is now that you feel so confident in, ask yourself, how is AI going to affect that market? Because the small businesses that realized that the internet leveled the playing field in terms of their ability to not spend a lot of money, but be seen by a lot of people, those are the ones who exited a few years later successfully. And I think it's going to be the same thing right now.
Great point. So I hope our listeners are paying attention to AI, learning how to use it, and to help make their exits even better, which I'm very excited
think about it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we're talking about exits, before we get to like one of the good ones, we got to talk about one of the crazy ones, which is nestselections.com during the .com era. So let's talk about this. Tell us what this business was and the financing that you raised for it.
Well, I was in marketing and I saw what Amazon was doing. And I also saw that I was a luxury goods buyer in New York City. So I thought, wow, luxury goods selling on the internet, it's the future. Mm-hmm. So we started Best Selections. And the concept was we would go all over the world. We pick small companies owned by individuals rather than Tiffany's. Yeah. And we would say for $250 a month, you can have a shop on our website and you can put up whatever you want to get rid of. You will send it out. We'll do the marketing and we'll take the orders. We'll send you the order. We will charge you $250 a month to house you and then 10% of sales. So I took it to Bob Harris, who at that time took WorldCom, very, very famous in the internet point there. And his kid went to school with my kid. Anyway, I went to he and his wife, Jody, close friends, and said, I want to do this. And he said, not only do I think it's brilliant, I will invest. Jody and I will invest. So they put in $5 million. That was the first round of financing. Okay, 3 months later, we'd raised another $20 million. Now, when I say we, I had nothing to do with that. I was putting together what was going to happen. Okay, so, and that's when the board of directors formed. Newsflash, everyone, pay attention. Pay attention to your board of directors. Make sure you know who's on it. Make sure they're your friend. You know, they've got to bring something more than a connection to you and a loyalty to you. But at the same time, don't lose control of your board. They brought the board in. They said to me, is there anybody on the board? I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm very busy. I don't have time for this. Board starts meeting. Another round of financing comes in. A year later, we're launching the site. Now, this site cost $3 million back then, and it took a year to build. Can you imagine? So we were launching for the Christmas season. The last time it was evaluated, we were worth $227 million, and my worth in that was 27%, because every time you roll in another round of financing, you lose a little bit of market your own ownership. But again, I didn't realize that meant I had no control over anything. So all of these things are happening, and all I'm doing is trying to build this business. What I recognized is, and Bob Harris was, every time we do another round of financing, we double in value. So let's keep doing the financing. I don't mind. But then I saw that we weren't making our numbers. What was happening is people were not purchasing large goods online yet. They were buying at Amazon a little bit, but we were too early to market. So, and I also noticed that everybody on the internet was too early to market. None of them were making their numbers. So I went and said, we have to stop spending. We're a year too early. In a year, we'll be fine, but we are not going to have the money. And he said to me, I'll never forget it. Here I am, this woman who's, I don't know, was I 40 then? Who knows? Anyway, he said, you stay in your lane, Christine. He goes, you don't know what you're talking about. And I took WorldCom public. Don't even talk to me. And he was irritated that I would even question what he was up to.
But you knew. But you owned 27% of a company that was, dude.
To give me a little credit, no one else saw it. I saw it. And I don't have the courage to push myself, I think to myself, well, he must know better than me. This is what he does for, like, maybe I don't know. I second guessed my own intuition and my knowledge of the internet, which in some ways was greater than his. He may have been the investment banker that was, yes, but I was seeing anyway. So if finally where I go in and I think I'm going to lose all my money, their 5 million is probably like an 18th of their net worth. What I had in there was pretty much everything. And I had shut down Blue Shoe, so I wasn't getting any other income, and this was it. So I went in and there was a board fight, and I'll never forget it. I presented why I thought we should stop spending. We had $6 million in the bank. We could have easily gone another year and just cut back on advertising, just slow down, and the board was all men and me, and I'll never forget it. The founders of Duane Reade were investors, and they're Hasidic Jews, and he was there with his 2 sons, and I could see that they were listening to me and they agreed with me. Mm-hmm. There was a board vote. I lost and I left. What I didn't do, like shoot me dead, like you can just point your gun, I didn't negotiate an exit that gave me anything, including.
So you just left.
Yeah, okay. The way you're saying it is making me feel bad about myself.
No. Well, what did the company end up being worth? What ended up happening?
0.
Right. So.
No, but even so, when the founder and chairman that the Wall Street Journal is writing about every other day leaves, you don't want her saying anything. I should have gotten something from my shares.
Okay, that's true. But
I just sat up straight like the Girl Scout that I am, and I said, frankly, I don't give a damn. I'm leaving.
You had a Jerry Maguire moment. Good for you. No, I mean it like
no. Look, if me, bearing my soul here is going to help anybody, be thoughtful. Get the right people. I'm writing a book called Circles of Collaboration. Get the circle around you that can collaborate with you for that moment. Bottom line is 9 months later, they go under. Everything went under. There was the market crash for that. But I was right. Anyway, the head of the Duane Reade person wrote me a letter, and he said, my sons and I talked afterward, and we thought you were right, and we're sorry we didn't stand up for you. And that was probably one of the top moments in my career.
Right, because it's so validating. Because finally you heard somebody...
That in a subway token.
Yes, I know.
Well, okay, anyway, that's best selections. Okay, we're now at 97, I think, when that happened. Okay.
But also, Christine, I just want to ask you something about this. Don't you think some of the spending, some of the freewheeling, some of the raise more money for more valuation was part of that era and that time? What people don't realize, I think, our younger generation, is that when the internet became the internet, these .com companies were valued like that. Like it was sort of
and every time you did a new raising of funds, your value went up. So they wanted you to, he wanted me to spend that money. It wasn't, okay, but here's a parallel that I see now. So now you've got all these private equity people coming in, and what I see them doing is front-loading the C-suite. Or we're bringing this consultant in. So these companies that are now burdened with, some debt, that for the private equity to purchase, they're also, you've got to recognize that if it's your company, pay attention to your details. Now, Warren Buffett says it, but Thomas Murphy, who do you even know who that is? Mm-hmm. Okay. He was head of Capital Cities, much more successful than NBC or anything else. Thomas Murphy was a mentor of mine in the 70s. Okay. And he became the biggest media company in the world. He was bigger than NBC, and he started out owning 3 radio stations. Wow. Okay. Capital Cities was the name of the company. Okay. So one time somebody wanted to paint the walls of the radio station, and he said, paint the 2 walls that face the road, but don't paint the other one. Nobody's going to see them. If somebody wanted to hire an assistant, he'd say, don't worry, it's only $30,000 a year. I heard him say this one. He said, no, it's not. It's $3 million over the next 20 years. So his attention to financial detail is something I think that was very helpful too. So,
and probably lacking during that time quite a bit.
But I see it a little bit now. I see that spurt a little bit now. Be careful about your money. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Especially like in the AI, like all the companies with AI and all of the valuations and investments around that. It's very interesting. So now we are done with best selections. We had our Jerry Maguire moment. We're out. And we buy into...
But I wanted to say two more points.
Sure.
One of the things I made the mistake of is I gave credibility to somebody with a reputation. Bob Harris took WorldCom public. I gave him credibility over my own point of view when I had been right for the prior 3 years. We tend to do that. If someone walks in the room, especially, I hate to say it, but I see it more in my gender. When someone walks in the room and they've got the creds, sometimes it's harder to say, wait, I'm not sure I should challenge that. Even if you don't say it out loud, don't necessarily give up your point of view for someone who you think has bigger experience. So if you're sitting with Warren Buffett, Carrie, and he says something, sometimes you don't take the time to think about whether you agree or not. You just
take it because it's Warren Buffett. Yeah, and you say, right. Okay, right, that's Warren Buffett. I should not have any kind of differing opinion whatsoever. When in reality, it is perfectly appropriate to have a differing opinion, and you never know. You really never know.
And the third point I want to make is the Soros methodology of success. So George Soros, who everybody knows, and, I'm a huge fan and I happen to know him. But he told me that one of the differences between him and everybody else is that when he makes a mistake, he doesn't try to make it right. He just moves on. He takes the hit. So when he lost $1 billion in 1987, which was the most any company had ever lost, he just said, okay, and he made it up before the end of the year. That was October 87, big fallout. Because he let go of what he had messed up. And he said, what he is shocked at is how many people, I think he probably said men at the time, how many men hold on to something trying to make a bad decision a right one.
Right.
And so as soon as the decision, Chris, is wrong, you should change your mind. And I didn't do that here. I didn't pay attention to those takeaways, so... Board of directors, critical. And if you make a bad decision, let it go. Take the hit.
So you did end up rebuilding, moving on from that loss.
Well, it resurrected Blue Shoe strategy, yeah.
So you bring back Blue Shoe.
Yeah.
And then you buy into a party rental company. Talk to me a little bit about that.
We were out in the Hamptons. My friend Dennis Susskind, who used to be head of gold and silver trading at Goldman Sachs, really funny guy, one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet. We saw that this pink hippo from New York City was coming out to the Hamptons, and there was a small rental company, Watermill Party, that was local. And we decided that we didn't want all these big companies coming out from New York. We're going to buy a party rental company, and we're going to start buying these small businesses so that they can compete.
Okay.
Because the Hamptons was taking off. We buy Watermill Party, and the first weekend, there's a lot of dirty dishes that come back. It's really gross. It's not a pretty business. And I'm like, oh my God, what have we done? And he's looking at me, and we didn't even have enough dishwashers. He was a member of the Atlantic Golf Club. We took dishes over and washed them there at night. It was bad. So we're like, how do we get out of this? Because I had invested a substantial amount of my, renewed income. And so I decided I wanted to exit as quickly as possible. Classic Party Rentals was buying small, owned businesses around the country to enlarge. They had bought 37 party rental companies at that point. So I said, I'm going to give myself a year. I'm going to market it up. I'm going to triple the business, which I did. And then I'm going to present to him why this guy should buy us. So that's what he did. And so a year and a half later, I pitched him. I sent them a letter and said, here's why you need to buy me. I didn't say it because I hate dirty dishes and I don't know why I did this,
No, but you had improved the business. You put the year.
I made sure I figured, what does he need? He needs it to triple. And I said, but here's why you need us, because you're going into these luxury markets and we now have bought all these products, luxury products, and you don't have that in your portfolio. Anyway, I really looked at his business, seek to understand rather than be understood. And then I pitched the business, which he bought. Okay. Wow. But I had to stay for 3 years. I had to move to LA. Well, first of all, I was the largest person in the entire city. So I was always, running into tables at restaurants. It was not my kind of place.
Oh, I see. The actual largest person in that house in LA. Yeah, no.
So I went there. I had to be there for, my contract was for 3 years. And we didn't get our payout if I didn't make the numbers for Watermill Party for the first year.
Okay, so you, just so I understand, so you buy in to Watermill. It's a small business. You buy a small business, you put whatever remaining capital you invest in there, you buy it, you're going to triple it. You position direct, you go direct to the acquirer you want. You say, this is what I want. This is
I
why
tell him why I'm value to him. This is why you don't have this, and this is what you need.
This is why he buys into that in a big way, wants you as part of this.
Well, I had to go and run marketing. They basically got rid of the marketing guy, and they brought me in to do marketing nationally.
So you might argue you did too good of a job convincing him he needed you.
All right, I know we're running out of time. Let me give you the takeaways. Because while financially, thank you very much, was fine, but there are other lessons to be learned out there, everyone. And, I think that payout based on future earnings is a mistake, in my opinion. Because what happens is once you assimilate into that, I wasn't allowed to buy the stuff I needed for the next season. I mean, I was blocked by the fact that this was a huge company now, and I couldn't run it the way I'd run Watermill Party. So me making numbers that I thought would be easy was not. Number two, they were running the numbers. It didn't occur to me that I should have my own accountant because they said we missed the numbers by $6,000. Okay, 8 years later, somebody from the accounting department, 10 years later, actually maybe more, came to me and said that they'd fudged the numbers. They were told to fix the numbers.
Okay. So
what I'm saying, so here's the thing. Run your own, if your structure is dependent on numbers, then run your own numbers. I don't know what happened or what didn't. Classic filed for bankruptcy 5 years after I left. But I don't know what happened. I don't know whether that's true or whether it wasn't. It was also a disgruntled employee. I don't know. But what I did know is this. When he said you missed it by 6,000, when the CFO said that, I didn't ever say I want to do an audit.
This is such a good point because so many of my listeners end up being on an earn-out of some capacity. So this was a 7-figure exit. Was it based entirely on future earnings?
No. The payout was, I can't remember, 2/3, whatever it was.
A little certain amount up front.
It was the last payment. The last payment was based on getting through the next season's earnings.
And you missed it by $6,000, and you didn't at that time audit it or do anything. You just said, okay.
I mean, I just didn't think, I don't think like that.
You didn't think.
Maybe I don't. I don't want to be that person who doesn't trust anyone. However, when your numbers are dependent like that, then you've got to do your own tracking. We had tracked it. I thought I had just made a mistake. So, I just figured I didn't, I did something wrong, so. But here's the other lesson from that, again, because I'm trying to keep everything into this numbers. Small businesses that run like jet skis, which was me, I could turn on a dime at Watermill Party. I'd do whatever I wanted. Okay, if you're being bought and you have to stay by a company that runs like the Titanic, it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is that you really look at the company, go talk to other owners who have been purchased by those companies. Go visit them, talk to them, and make sure that if you have to stay, that it's going to be the kind of fit where you don't end up, having, counting the days till your contract's over. That's my recommendation.
It's fantastic advice. So now you've left Classic Party, you're there, and you return to Blue Shoe. One of the things that I love about you is that you've kept through the entirety of all of these wins, these losses, all these things, you've kept Blue Shoe strategy as your own. And talk to me a little bit about that choice and about what Blue Shoe's up to nowadays.
Well, I will tell you that when you have a company like mine where I'm the person in the company, it's hard to sell it because if I wanted to, which I don't, but if I did, it's hard to sell it because they're buying you. The name is really irrelevant. So never name your company if you want an exit yourself. Anyway, we changed the name a year ago because it was 30 years old from Blue Shoe to Blue 2, but Blue 2 Media. But I did keep it, but that's because I kept a lot of my consulting clients all those years. And as you know, because I brought some of my consulting clients to Likeable when you had Likeable to have you guys do some buying for us. But I kept it just because people would call me, and if I was interested, I would do it. But really, at night, I was writing books. And so I still have Bluetooth Media. We have, considerable number of people working there. And I love what I do because I can pick and choose. Yes, we want to work on that project, or no, we don't. But I think you're probably the same, right?
Yeah, because you can, the thing that I love about that type of consulting business is you can turn up the dial or turn down the dial whenever you want. If you jump into something that's all consuming and you can't take on clients, okay, sorry, got to turn it down. Oh, you know what? I need some income right now. Got to turn it up. And so I think, to me, the idea that we can use our brains to build businesses that supplement our income while we work on all of this stuff is really fabulous. And you mentioned writing books. You're working on a novel. True or false?
Oh, it just came out 2 weeks ago.
Yes. Oh my God.
Flight of the Starling is our novel. I wrote it with my college roommate. It's about a wealthy divorced woman who lives in the Hamptons and Palm Beach, and she's a billionaire friend, and his daughter was trafficked to Saudi Arabia 25 years earlier. He's hired CIA people all these years to find her. They think they found her, and he asked his friend to go get her. And so it's only been out a week and a half, but knock on wood, we're excited about the response. So,
well, I'm going to order it right now. I'm so excited for you. And
thank you.
I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing these stories. We need to hear them so that we understand, what works and maybe some things that we shouldn't do going forward. And you're just such a beautiful example of resilience, and what an amazing career.
Somebody asked me about it as a failure 6 years ago, and I thought, God, I never thought of it as a failure. I don't think like that. So I hope I hope nobody watches this or listens to this and says, wow, that's so it's not negative. It's, you know what it is? It's empower yourself by knowledge and understanding of the mistakes that have been made before you. But thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you, Christine. You were a great guest.